welcome to the Puzzle of Us podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea Peterson, owner and clinical director of Cache Valley Counseling. I've had over a decade of experience, actually almost 2 decades of experience now, working with lots of people in various walks of life, and I wanted to share some of that knowledge with just the general public, and lo and behold, out was born this podcast. So I appreciate you listening to me and ramble on about various things that I feel are important, and today's topic is no exception. One of the things that I think people don't talk about very often is our relationship with food. And our food is so important, and what we're intaking into our body is so important. And it can be a very stressful thing for a lot of people. From what to eat to what am I, a lot of people don't like eating around other people. And so today we are going to talk about mindful eating and how that can affect you, and how to do it. What is it? Mindful eating, what does that even mean? And we're going to go through the basics of that, as well as some various health benefits that you can see from mindful eating, as well as just the impacts that it can have in being a little bit more mindful in what you are intaking into your body. So what is the concept? Like, what does mindful eating even mean? What does it mean today, every day? How do I use it? What does it look like? Mindful eating is really just thinking about the process of slowing down and being mindful of what you are eating, right? So there's lots of ways to do this. You look online, even Google mindful eating tips, and lots of these things will come up. One of the things that is the easiest to think about is just slowing down and being present while intaking food, right? And there's lots of things that we'll talk a little bit about this, about from kitchen prep to buying your food, and it can be an all-consuming thing. So there's a few ways that this can show up in your life other than just actually the act of eating food, and we'll talk about those a little bit. But for the majority of the time, I want you to think about mindful eating as being the act of eating something. Many of us, just think about the last time you sat down to a meal and just focused on eating, right? So many of us are, have a phone in our hand, or reading a book, or, doing homework, or doing other things while we're eating, and it creates even more chaotic. We live in a very chaotic world, in a very fast-paced, very busy world, and oftentimes, myself included in this, have sometimes felt like eating was a chore or was a task on my to-do list, and at times I didn't have the greatest relationship with food, as it was a way that it interrupted my day, right? It's getting in the way of my task list or my productivity or things like that. And so sometimes it does become a chore, something that we have to do. Our body does function so much better when we have food, and quality food. And there's a whole host of things that we could talk about, what's quality, what's not, and I'm not going to get into that. I will let you be the guide of that, but knowing, being generous of your time to be able to be more present when you're eating is really the purpose of today's podcast, and I hope that by bringing awareness to this, that you can do just that. So kind of the key principles of mindful eating is really slowing down and being present in the process of eating. One of the easiest ways that I think can help is to use the acronym TASTE. TASTE standing for thinking about eating due to hunger, not just mindlessly eating, right? Many of us can binge eat or overeat or eat to numb out feelings. We can also do the opposite, as I've already mentioned, of not eating because productivity gets in the way and things like that. So the first part of this acronym TASTE, T stands for thinking about eating. A is the next one, and A stands for appreciate. And this just is taking a moment to be appreciative of your food, where it came from. It does help if it's a little healthier, right? Oftentimes, things like a raisin is used in therapeutic experiences with eating because raisins have a high nutritional value. They come from all over the world. You know, if you put a grape in your mouth, you could also think about like, where did this grape come from? You know, I saw it hanging, you could see it almost hanging on the vineyards in California or Greece or wherever you want to picture your grapes coming from. But you can have appreciation for the trees and the vines and the things that they were growing on and the process in which it took to get from a little seed to this vine and in these vineyards, and then picked off these trees and then dried, and the process that it went through. So whatever your food is, whatever food choice it is, being appreciative of that, even if it's a highly processed food, let's say Cheetos, for instance, right? Being appreciative of the work and energy and time and production and all the things that went into making this food that you are eating. Again, it's a little bit better, and you can create maybe healthier storylines with the healthier foods, but you can certainly do it with over processed foods as well. The S in taste stands for slow, and you want to eat slowly, right? So again, going back to the raisin, I don't want to just pop it in my mouth and chew it and swallow it, right? I want to take time to think about that food being in my mouth. Think about it. What does it feel like? Can I feel the individual ridges on a raisin? Can I feel what it tastes like when I bite into it? Is there any juice left in it? Is it completely dried? Is it kind of mushy? Like, just paying attention to what it feels like to sink your teeth into it, or to have that experience in your mouth. What's happening in those moments? And then the next one is the T in taste. The second T in taste stands for time, and that's taking your time. You want to do things slowly. You want to take your time doing it, and again, really just immerse yourself in being fully present and aware and in the moment with eating whatever it is that you're eating. And then E at the end of taste stands for ending your meal when you feel satiated, when you feel full, not overstuffed, not well, I'm just eating just to eat. I'm still empty inside, but really kind of tuning into what is my body and how is my body telling me that I am eating enough, or I have eaten enough. Eat until you're satiated, or satiated, however you would like to say that word, and until you feel like you are at the end, and being really mindful of that. People who struggle with overeating or binge eating, right? I have a husband who we often refer to him as the garbage disposal. He hates to see food go to waste, and often, unfortunately, will overeat, or at times maybe binge himself because of his desire to not have the food go to waste. He usually ends up feeling awful. His tummy hurts, and he goes to bed, and he's, you know, whatever, gassy, and all the things that can happen when we overeat, right? And so making sure that you're becoming more aware of, what is my stomach telling me? How do I know when I'm full? What does that feel like, right? When we talk to little kids, I've got lots of little kids at home, and how does your tummy feel? And does it feel full? Does it feel like it's full? Do you need some more? And starting that at a young age, again, we often get really busy and get busy doing lots of other things that we forget to kind of check in with. Am I eating just because? Am I eating to numb out? Am I eating to wipe away my feelings? Am I eating because I'm actually hungry? And so those are just, again, some things to think about of how do I know, what does it feel like to feel full? Not overstuffed, not empty, but how do I feel full? So again, those are, the acronym is TASTE. Again, thinking about it, appreciate it, slowly, time, and ending. Those are just a quick acronym to help you start to think about being present in the process of eating and being more mindful in your eating habits. So what are the benefits of doing this? Why would one person want to be a little more mindful in how they're eating? And some of the increased benefits from being more mindful when we are eating include being awareness of our hunger or our fullness, right? We'll eat, if we can increase the awareness of that, we will eat when we're hungry, and we won't eat when we're not hungry. And just increasing the awareness of that can be really helpful so that we're not overeating. It can also help with weight loss. Lots of people have, again, food is very much tied to weight loss or weight gain. And we can be a little bit more mindful of that when we are aware or more mindfully eating. It is absolutely known to reduce stress. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, and it absolutely goes off when our fight, flight, freeze response is, cortisol is starting to be produced in our brains and our body. It picks up on that cortisol when our fight, flight, freeze response is initiated. And when feelings of stress are high, cortisol levels are often high, and we tend to eat less. And so if we can reduce that by eating more often or more frequently, our cortisol levels tend to stay lessened. Our fight, flight, freeze response tends to be not less active, but isn't signaling danger or potential of danger away around us. And so reduced cortisol levels is usually associated also with a feeling of less stress. Another benefit is that people are able to better digest food, right? If we go with long periods of fasting or periods of fasting and then overeating or over binging, those things our digestion gets all out of whack and our body is not used to doing things. So getting on a routine and eating on a more routine basis can be really helpful. We often, I've already mentioned this, but we also see very much an increase or a decrease in overeating and binge eating, because people are able to tell, hey, I'm getting hungry, and then people aren't, eating their feelings away and having unhealthy relationships with food. Another huge benefit that we see is an increased satisfaction with food. Again, a lot of times people can get to the point where they're disappointed in food, or food gets in the way, or I've got to stop my day or not be productive because of food. And so if we increase this mindfulness practice with food, we can often appreciate our food a little bit more, appreciate what our food is doing for our body, and we're able to increase the likelihood that we are going to eat on a more regular basis and be able to be more aware of our society's satiation levels and how full we are. And again, decreasing stress, keeping food in our bodies, and we're able to continue to maintain and increase our satisfaction with food. Oftentimes, what we also see as a result of people being more mindful with their eating is we do see healthier food choices being made. So when those healthier food choices are made, we then are eating things that are healthier for us, less processed foods. We get more nutritional value from less processed foods, and we're able to make better food choices. And that are really actually able to benefit our body more. Again, keeping cortisol low, reducing stress levels, all of those things are a direct effect of all of that as well. Again, practical steps for mindful eating can be as simple as helping you to be mindful in your eating at least one time a day. Again, every time you sit down to have a meal, or every time I grab a snack, or every time, it doesn't have to be mindful eating every time. But if you can do this a couple of times a week, even, it can really increase your satisfaction with food, how I'm thinking about food, how I feel about food, and it can really help enhance, again, lots of great benefits that we've already talked about. But finding a time to really slow it down and use those principles that I talked about: taste, again, time, appreciation, going slowly, thinking about it, appreciation, slowing it down, taking the time, and then ending when you feel full. If you can follow that simple tip, it often can really help increase that mindful eating. Again, mindful eating can be even a process of just taking one food item. Even right now, can I put one thing in my mouth and can I just appreciate it? Can I think about where it's been? Can I think about its journey? Can I think about what it's going to provide for me? Right? What's the nutritional value? Where does it come from? What's my body going to take from this? What does it feel like in my mouth? What does it feel like in my teeth? What does it feel like, in my cheeks as I bite down on it? All these things are things that you can slowly walk through that can really, really help and be a benefit to just increase the story that you are telling yourself around food. Again, we live in such a chaotic, very busy, very go, go, go lifestyle that oftentimes, taking a break for food is an inconvenience rather than an appropriate, or not even an appropriate, it's an inconvenience and not cherished or appreciated like it could be. Another thing that people often do is that they associate food with people, right? And societal things, we get together, we have the Super Bowl, we have like lots of things, and food is almost always a part of it. And culturally, I mean, we see this in other cultures too, where families or communities get together and there's very much a bringing together or a community feeling around food. And sometimes those are very healthy, they have healthy ideas of food. And other times it's, well, we're together, so we eat. And so again, I would encourage you to think about, like, do I only eat when I'm with other people? And how do I increase my awareness of my own being? Like oftentimes I found myself doing this at the Super Bowl, right? Food is out, food is all over, and there's tons of great food, and I'm full, but I'm not listening to my body, and everybody else is eating, so I will eat. Again, doing mindful eating on a regular basis can help in moments like that to say, I'm full, and I'm okay saying no to that. I don't need to overeat just to fit in socially or to feel accepted or because of the relationship that you have with food is more important or is strong enough in those moments to not get in the habit of it or to feel pulled in that direction. So those things can definitely have an impact on how you interact with food on a daily basis. Another thing that I wanted to touch on is a lot of times people will say, I don't know how to prepare food, or I don't know what to prepare, or being in my kitchen stresses me out. And so the idea of creating a mindful kitchen can be really helpful, right? As you are in an environment in which I'm preparing food, how do I help this be an environment in which I feel safe, in which I feel like I can slow down, right? If I'm in the kitchen and there's the radio going and the TV on and things like that, it might not be a quiet environment. Not that it even has to be a quiet environment, but an environment in which I can push pause on things and slow down, right? Setting up a kitchen in a way that, I'm wanting to be in. So if I have, my drawers are unorganized or I can't find anything, then again, that's going to affect my relationship with food. I'm not going to want to be in my kitchen. I'm not going to want to be preparing my food. I'm not going to want to be, cutting things up or any of those things. And so oftentimes helping organize your kitchen in a mindful way helps eases the stress and tension of eating, which also helps increase the chance of you likely being more mindful when you eat. Another thing with this is not only a mindful kitchen, but also the social connections that we have. Eating around food and again, doing this, being active in your daily mindful or more frequent mindful eating can help when you're at celebrations, when you're at holidays or other social events that it feels like it's based around eating. will help you become more aware of things like that. Oftentimes people experience a lot of social anxiety in the opposite direction of not that I want to eat around people, but also that I don't want to eat because I'm around people. And so that can also help as you are being mindful. Can I have a relationship with food that this is important to me and I am going to eat because this is my time to eat, right? Like, for example, I had a client once who had a lot of social anxiety around eating, and she had a very difficult time eating in her break room or lunchroom at work because she was afraid of people judging her and the societal pressures that she felt when she was there. And so often what she would do is in those individual moments when she was home in her own kitchen, she would imagine herself being in those places. And even just imagining it, right, would bring up some anxiety, would bring up some discomfort. And as she was able to manage through that in her own kitchen in a space that she could control, in an environment that she could control, she was able to be more mindful in that and use that mindfulness eating practice at home in an environment that she could control, that she was eventually able to actually eat at work. Again, still not totally comfort, didn't totally like solve her problem, but she's at least now eating at work instead of going long periods of time and totally stressing her body out and her mind and running on very little fuel. And she was able to actually, eat in front of people, which was incredibly helpful and very valuable for her. Again, I think that's just one success story of someone using mindfulness eating on a relatively regular basis and using it in an environment in which she could control to help her with the social part of it. Again, there's lots of other things that stop people from having a good relationship with food, right? And being able to be more mindful helps us make better choices when we are choosing the fuel that is really fueling our bodies. It's fueling our brains. It's telling us, it's giving us the energy to respond to life, to do all the to-do lists, to respond to chaos, to be able to keep going and be productive. And so it's really important to look at the relationship that you have with food. And I would really encourage you that if you don't have a great relationship with food, or if I'm just going and I'm just going to stop and pick up this real quick and then eat it real fast, right? If that's the life you live, I would really encourage you to slow down. And that still can be the case, but maybe I'm making a choice to have a smoothie instead of a taco time or something like that, or McDonald's, or right, maybe my food choices become a little bit different because of my relationship with food. So I'd encourage you to do that. It's something that, food is something that we do every day, multiple times a day, and there are lots of people who have lots of anxiety around eating or not eating, and their relationship with food is not great. And so I hope that today you've been inspired to just kind of pause on life for a minute and think about what eating is like for you and how to be more mindful in your eating. I think it's important that we really take a look at that. And of course, we can all do better about what we are intaking into our bodies and things like that. But really doing it can make a big difference in the fuel that you're providing for your body to keep performing for you. Yeah, I hope that was helpful for any of you. And there's lots of other ways that this is not just one way. I mean, there's lots of ways to do mindfulness eating. And so if you're curious about it, again, there's lots of resources online and lots of helps online. And if you really do struggle with that, there's also nutritionists, dietitians. There are therapists that specialize in eating and eating disorders, or even just food, relationships with food. And so if there is help out there, you are not alone. It is not a commonly sought out thing super often, unless it's become a big enough problem to maybe have an eating disorder or things like that. But lots of people struggle a little bit with food, and it's good to take a look at it and just be mindful, right? Be present and aware of how it feels when you are eating food, and how that feels in your body and what that's doing for you and your mind. And all of those things are really good to just pause and think about for a minute. This has been The Puzzle of Us. I've been your host, Chelsea Peterson, and we'll catch you next time.